Today I would like to talk about opened eyes. How important is that? Having eyes open to see things. It's very important. When I think about opened eyes, all that I could think of is the prayer that Apostle Paul prayed for the church of Ephesians. Uh, it's a beautiful prayer, and it is recorded in chapter 1 verse 18 till the end of the chapter, that is 1 verse 23. Apostle Paul is praying in chapter 1 verse 18, and he says to God that I pray that the eyes of their heart may be enlightened. Why would he even pray for the eyes of the heart to be enlightened? Because three things that he is mentioning. Number one, so that they would understand or they would know the hope of God's call in their lives. Do you know that you have a hope? Hope is very important. What if you don't understand the hope of God's call in your life? That will be a big disaster, right? And the second thing that he is praying in 1 verse 18 is so that eyes being open, so that they can see the glory of God's inheritance and the riches of God's glory in his inheritance, that is in the body of Christ. How important is that? The group of believers around us, the church that God has placed us in. It is very important to see the glory of God's inheritance in the midst of the people. And if I don't have the opened eyes, I'm going to be very critical of every single joint that supplies to my need in the body of Christ. And I need an opened eyes to see that. And the third thing that he says, that we all need opened eyes to realize the power of God. And that is 1 verse 18, the surpassing greatness of God's power. And then he goes on to explain what is this power. What is this power? And in 1 verse 20 he says, this is the power that is the Spirit of God raised dead Jesus with to life. Can you imagine that? Raising Jesus Christ from the grave, and to today he has received his life, and he is seated at the right hand of God on high. And that is the power, and we all need to know that it is the power towards us who believe in God. And then he says that all the other things are everything, almost principalities, powers, everything is under this power. And he is given as head to the church, and we are his body. Can you imagine that? The body of Christ, and where the fullness of Christ fills us. We all need opened eyes to know the hope of God's call, and to know the riches in other believers, how God works through other believers and supplies something to us, and the power. Sometimes if we don't know these things, and we may feel powerless, or we may be at a disadvantageous place when it comes before the enemy. I would like to tie up this entire portion in the prayer with a story in Genesis chapter 21. I think it begins from verse 9 and till the end of the chapter. And in this story, a mother and a boy, they are being cast out from the home, and they both walk into the wilderness, and they had little bread and some water. And as they are walking in the wilderness, the heat of the wilderness, and they drank all the water that they had, and they used up the water, and they were thirsty, and the boy was very thirsty, and it was almost that the boy was dying. What did the mother do? What would you do as a mother when your son is dying out of thirst? And what this mother does is, and leaves him under a tree, under a bush, and stands about 10 feet away from him, or approximately say 8 to 10 feet away from him, and she cries. I don't want to see the mother, I don't want to see the boy dying. All that she is doing is she is crying. And then the angel of God appears to her and tells her, and this lady's name is Hagar, and the boy that was dying is Ishmael. and angel of God appears to her and talks to her. What is the matter with you? Why are you crying? uh, God heard the cry of the lad, and do not fear, and God will be with him, and he will make him a great nation. And then it says that God opened her eyes to see the well. Do you see in the picture there is a well? Sometimes we could be like crying like a Hagar, and the situation is in front of us, and we are just 10 feet away, figuratively speaking, from the situation. All that we are seeing is the situation dying, and we are saying, God, I don't want to see the situation die, and I've been crying. What do I need in that situation? An eyes that is opened. It says in Genesis 21 verse 19, God opened her eyes. And suddenly she finds the well. Was the well there initially? Yes. But without opened eyes, what good is the well? And then after that, she goes to the well and takes the water and feeds the boy. And God was with him as he promised. And he made him as a great nation, and he taught him some skill so that he could protect himself from the wild beasts. And that is, he became an archer. Right? Can you imagine that? Who are these two people outside the covenant? How God is merciful towards them. And if you see that picture, it is beautiful. I want to close with this verse, Romans chapter 5 verse 10. Once upon a time we were all enemies of God. Right now we have been reconciled by the death of Jesus Christ. And it says in Romans 5 verse 10, having been reconciled, much more we are going to be delivered from every single situation by the life of Christ. Right? In the life of Christ is in me. Friends, we all need opened eyes to see the life of Christ in us, and the hope that God has placed in our call, right? In His call in our lives. Don't you say that you don't have a hope. You have a hope. And you have people around us, and the body of Christ, and you have the glory of God's riches in them, right? And then you have the power of God towards you. What an amazing thing. And if our eyes are not opened, then we are going to be crying like a Hagar when the well is right there, right? What good is the eyes if it is not opened? Just think about this portion and be blessed by reading that portion. Thank you so much. God bless you. Have a great day.